The Nike Precision 7s are an odd shoe, that is to say the least. There's some really cool and interesting parts of these shoes, some others that, really you need to take warning of. So let's get into them. Now, I'd say the biggest elephant in the room on the 7s is obviously the Easyon logo right here on the lace line, and really that takes us to the ankle collar, right, or the heel counter. Now, with an Easyon shoe, you're supposed to be able just to slip into them, and with these, that definitely is the case. Even if this Velcro lage case is tightened, you can still get in the shoe because the heel counter bends down, right? Now, if you look at that underneath, really the only thing that allows that is that there is no vertical heel counter in the back of the shoe. You get these little plastic winglets that come at about a 45-degree angle into the mid part of the heel of the shoe, and they're pretty thin and flexible, so they'll bend with your heel. The problem with that is because they come in at that angle and they are so thin and flexible, the containment in the heel is pretty much nothing, right? So yeah, they do slip on and off very easily, but they also slip on and off very, very easily. I noticed that if I really pushed down on the medial side of the shoe when it was my ankle, and then I tightened down this little lace cage Velcro, I got a better lockdown. If I pushed and then laid it down, that made it a little bit better. But I mean, doing my little heel slip test, I just come right out of it, whereas other shoes, you're getting a hard stop. So do have to keep that in mind, and that does kind of enter into the equation as we get into the performance and playability of these two. Now, moving into the rest of the uppers, obviously, like I said, you got the lace cage, which this top piece, the red piece, that is elastic and it does go through the tongue, which is nice. It does push the tongue down, and that tongue is ridiculously padded. That's probably my favorite part of these shoes, in the uppers, I should say. The lace line on these, it's these little cables, and then it's kind of an outrigger lace eyelet system, which honestly, if these just spanned a little bit more of the uppers, I think you could probably get a better lockdown, because when you're tying this Velcro tab down, it really is hard to kind of crank up on the laces and then push it down, because you almost start running out of real estate on the Velcro if you really try to get these things cinched down. So that was a little bit of a problem for me in terms of lockdown as well. Now, the next thing is you move into the forefoot and you have even more padding here, and all this textile laying over top of it really does not allow a lot of breathing. You look at the breathability mapping on these. Surprisingly, the tongue breathes more than you would think it would. There's a lot more fog exchange there, which is nice. But then you look at the breathability test on these things, and they only heat it up 101.9 degrees, which really isn't terrible. And that's because these materials are just so light, right? And there's so much of this super light padding, the heat is kind of getting trapped in all this padding, and the heat gun doesn't really catch it when it's reading the inside of the shoe. But if you take the heat gun and you read the top layer of the shoe, that does stay warm for a lot longer than some others. So they are going to hold on to a ton of moisture, but because of how light the uppers are in terms of heat exchange, plus there's just a lot of cavities for air to get out of there. Now, honestly, the heating of these really isn't all that bad. But if you look at the upper durability test on these, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, woof. It does have a drag guard, and that burr just works right through it, really no problem, right to the underside of that textile layer. So in terms of outdoor dragging or sliding, number one, you got exposed foam too, but these are gonna start to look pretty weird on anything but super slick painted quartz as well as hardwood. All right, but getting into the midsole teardown, I actually had to do some sleuthing there in my parts bin to figure out what the midsole foam was. It does appear to be an entire bed of Nike Renew foam, looked identical to the Giannis Immortality 3 and the Renew Elevate, so that's what I'm going with, a full bed of that. It does have a top-loaded, very stiff plastic shank that was very strong to try to get through with my knife, and you can feel that on foot. There is a little bit of an arch on these, which is really surprising, and actually felt decently conforming to your foot, which was pretty crazy, and you're gonna need that when we get to the fit section. We'll talk about it. And look at the bounce height test on these, 35 centimeters in the heel, and then shocker, 35 in the forefoot. This Renew foam, honestly, I don't hate Renew foam. I know I always say this in these videos, and I know other people don't like it. And no, it is not the most durable foam out there. Obviously, it's very lightweight, but for a budget shoe and what you're getting out of it, if you are a lighter weight player, this does have some significant spring back to it, especially with the shank on these. Like, I really did not hate kind of hopping up and down, jumping in these, especially doing layups. Like, it was actually a pretty comfortable experience, a pretty easy experience. So yeah, pretty simple midsole setup, but for what they are, it's actually surprisingly effective. All right, that brings us into the outsole of the 7s, and actually a pretty interesting pattern to me. It's more of an aggro crag, almost like a Colorado Avalanche logo pattern going through the whole thing. You look at the grip test ramp on this, they slip initially at 36 degrees. Interesting thing is you look at my new plantar foot viewing box that I just made. The tread on this actually does interact with the ground decently well. It does kind of move and interact with the surface. Some other shoes like these have a little bit of a harder durometer. This comes in at 17.5. Those shoes, when you view them on that box, they really don't move, right? It just looks like it's kind of gliding over it like an ice skate. Whereas in these, it kind of interacts like a more soft rubber, which honestly actually translated more on court, because these, no, they're not the most insane gripping shoes. They better not be because of the containment issue. But they're definitely not slippery shoes either. And then once you had some rubber warming in them, yeah, they picked up a little bit of dust, but not nearly enough to like do anything with, right? They maintained a very consistent grip, which honestly, that's really all you're looking for, right? Whether you like a little bit more of a forgiving grip, whether you like a super tack grip or somewhere in between or whatever, you just want it to be consistent. These, the Fresh Foam BBV2, the Hyper Dunks this year have been the ones I've noticed that are just incredibly consistent. Like no matter if they're cold, warm, dusty, clean, they just have a nice, consistent grip. And that's honestly what I thought was the best part of these. The thing you gotta look out for is you look at the outsole durability test though, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, where is it? Yeah, over 1 millimeter of damage on these, and the durometer is 17.5, it's a little higher. So the compound of rubber, even though it's a little bit harder on that durometer scale, still is prone to a little bit more breakdown. On an indoor hardwood court, because the surface area of the tread is a little bit bigger, you're gonna get a little bit better durability just because there's more to load share. And yeah, that does translate outside, but given how quick the burr pummeled through this tread, I still think that, a more forgiving indoor hardwood court's still going to be the best surface for these. But there probably are going to be some exceptions to that once we talk about the performance. Looking at the speed ratio of these, come in at 2.62. That bumps up to 2.82 with a shank score of 0.2. Honestly, I thought these were pretty quick shoes in a straight line as long as you felt confident you weren't going to slip out of them. The profile of them and the weight of them, that's nice, right? Especially with the Renew foam, the shank. Bottom of my foot felt great in these. It's, the sides, the rails that were the issue. So, if you're getting up to speed, right, or you're kind of bouncing, hopping around, they are pretty quick shoes for sure. And like I said, they're so unencumbering and lightweight. Put it this way, if this is a laced down model with a proper heel counter, yeah, these are gonna be super quick. But definitely the most confounding part of the 7s is its fit. Now these things actually fit just pretty medium in terms of width, but they come in pretty darn long, and for a shoe that's an Easyon, honestly, you don't want to have all that much room in these, and I think that's, to me, what was kind of causing some of the more issue with these in terms of fitting them right, and how I couldn't really crank down on the lace to get the Velcro to strap down. So I'd say a narrow and medium foot, if you're going to get these, honestly, I'd try to go down a half size on them just to get the fit, right? Just be able to get them on. If you are going to be doing anything in them in terms of, performance, whether it's basketball, pickleball, badminton, whatever. If you're a 2E, I don't know. I mean, put it this way, the uppers are light and moldable enough, but I still think you're going to get the cramping just because of the inflare of the shoe, because like I said, it is only 9 centimeters the metatarsal for the men's size 11. So although there is room in them, so for a 2E and a 4E, it's probably going to be a mismatch just because of the length of them, because it's really hard to get them to be, really secure around your foot. For kicking around, it's walking around, I mean, it's fine. It's just, but if you're using them for any bit of performance, that's the thing. In terms of the snake bitten foot, the thing is with that much potential for micromotion in the heel, you really can't wear them for heel pain, tendonitis, things like that. Anything that's going to cause micromotion, because you can't put orthotics in these. Because you put an orthotic in them, you need as much interaction with the shoe as humanly possible to get it to stay around your foot. Yeah, I guess you could augment them with things around it and little pads and things, but then are those gonna start crinkling and creasing once you're messing with the shoe? So honestly, these are for more of the non-snake bitten foot, ankle sprainers, medial instability too. If you've got tendonitis in your posterior tibial tendon, or you've got a hypermobile flat foot, like I said, these are much more for the non-snake bitten foot, or really, coming to the court with really no ailments, really anything you need any augmentation for, or anything, I would say look somewhere else. And so talking about those, micro motion characteristics of these, that really lands us right to the performance of these. Remember, they don't have a heel. I mean, they quote unquote, they do have a heel counter, right? Technically, but it's kind of non-functioning, right? When you put your foot into the shoe and you go try to play, it still feels like you've just creased down the shoe, like in a regular shoe you try to get in without actually, opening it up and putting your foot in. And it takes a minute for you to sit into the shoe for it to feel any bit secure. And even at that, it honestly doesn't. When I was trying to demonstrate like the hard stop and pivot capabilities of these, a couple times I almost just rolled over them. I was so afraid I was going to roll my ankle, and a few times, I really pummeled through the shoe. So it's hard to feel confident in them, and a lot of the times my foot's like sliding in the footbed of them because my plantar foot is on the uppers of the shoe as I'm trying to hard stop, and so it just ruins your rhythm when you're trying to do any sort of form shooting or when you're trying to create separation and like that. I will say, step backs and things like that, like quick short hops, they're super fun to play in actually because they are so unencumbering. They do kind of pop up off the ground pretty easily for a lightweight shoe, and the grip of them and the traction is really nice that it kind of rolls from step to step. Doing some fun things around the hoop on these is also a pretty pleasant experience, to be honest. They do feel very low to the ground on the forefoot. I know what the stack is on them, but they do actually feel like you got a lot of ground contact and ground feel, and the flange on them is so sharp, which that's like the best part of these shoes, the outsole tread plus the flange. And so they are actually very stable down here. It's just the uppers just, kind of take all that away. So, you do get some contact. And so for shoot around, just kind of hopping around, messing around, they're okay. They're nice, easy shoes to get on and off. And they're a budget shoe. So just for a shoot around shoe, or just, for messing around, going out there and just, putting some shots up, I guess they're okay. It's just, I wouldn't try to put the brakes on these, and I wouldn't try to really do anything that is going to any bit compromise you in terms of injury on these, because I think, number one, slipping out of the shoe and having issues, micro motion causing some overuse issues, ankle spraining, medial instability, right? Remember, you can sprain the inside of your ankle too. It's not just the outside, you can sprain the inside too. And that's another issue with just this one Velcro strap on the inside and no foxing or reinforcing elements anywhere. You can't, even though there's a shank on them, you really can't. I noticed the one time I was kind of pummeling through the inside of the shoe, and if I didn't have such like a rigid high arch, I think I probably could have gotten some instability there. So you just have to understand the limitations of these shoes, and I think if you buy them for the right reasons, you'll probably really like them because they are very comfortable shoes. They're not uncomfortable in any way. But like I said, just understand the warnings and you shouldn't have a terrible experience. So I love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, especially because Nike's been coming out with a lot of different budget models recently. A lot of them are pretty darn good in different ways. And like I said, if you do want to see the other one, the Honest Immortality, that is a pretty similar kind of built shoe, but much more player and performance focused, make sure you click into this video up above, subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.